I'm Graham,
And I'm Corinne.
and
And
we
we
are
are
Too
too
Talented.
talented.
Today on Too Talented, we are going to be talking about resumes. It's one of the main questions I get from candidates who are asking about job searching. Is my resume kind of done correctly? So resumes, there's no one size fits all. A lot of people use a lot of different language in resumes. The formatting can be different. So we're going to be talking about some kind of major things that can hopefully help get your resume in front of the right people when you're applying for jobs. So one of the things we're going to be doing each time, hopefully, is kind of a little bit of a roadmap of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to give some life updates about what's going on with us personally, and then we're going to kind of jump into the topic. So we're going to be talking about cover letter versus a summary on your resume, customizing it for jobs, kind of beat the bot using high frequency words, tell them early and tell them often about kind of your overall skills and the ones that are transferable to this particular job, tools to use such as AI, things of that nature, and then we'll do a wrap up.
So, how many resumes do you think you've looked at over the course of your career, Graham?
It's amazing. So I kind of thought through how many people I've probably placed, like personally, and I think it's probably close to 500. And you have about probably the people you look at a resume for, people you place is probably 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of resumes and LinkedIn profiles and that type of thing. What do you think?
Yeah.
How many of you looked at?
Oh, well, I mean, there was a time in my career when I was running a entry level sales program and we were hiring, 30 to 50 individuals at a time. So I think there were years that I personally placed more than 150 people that year.
Bragging now.
Just that year. No, it's a different environment. You're in an agency environment. I'm in a internal recruiting environment, so that's different. So yeah, I probably more than you in terms of placements, but resumes, I don't know. I mean, you may have done a lot of really difficult roles and for that had to look through a lot more resumes. So we're probably pretty even in terms of how many resumes we've looked at, but I don't know. I think, what would you say about, is a LinkedIn profile a resume? Because I think that's one thing that, maybe kind of start with that, or how should those differ in your mind before we get into the main topic? Well, we should probably do life updates.
Let's do life updates and then we'll jump into that because I think that's an important point.
Okay. All right. What's going on life-wise? There seems to be a lot of momentum happening in Stride Staffing at the moment.
Yeah.
We have grown from 2 followers on LinkedIn to 50.
To 50 beyond Stride Staffing, which is amazing.
On Stride Staffing. Yeah. So check us out on Stride Staffing LinkedIn. I mean, Graham and I both have, 5,000 plus connections. So if everybody that is connected to us goes and follows Stride Staffing, that would be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it actually is going well. I picked up 2 jobs last week. I picked up another one so far this week, and it's Wednesday. I'm starting to have candidates interview. I haven't closed the deal yet, but I'm starting to get pretty close. So
you had one of 2 finalists.
I did have a finalist candidate. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they didn't end up being the candidate, but that's okay. It's still pretty early days, so I'm pretty excited with the level of success that I'm having.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And running?
Running is going good. I'm feeling pretty fit. I'm going to race 25K in our neighborhood next weekend.
Shout out to the Rock
Hawk in Castle Rock, Colorado. So that'll be fun. Then I had to switch from Run Rabbit Run 100, which is coming up here in about 4 weeks. There was a little bit of some issues getting into that race, so I transferred to Javelina 100, which is a Halloween race. How exciting. And I think you're going to be running the 100K. Mm-hmm. So it'll be fun to both be out there. So that'll be really exciting. That's at the end of October. So that'll be really fun. How about you?
Nice. Yeah, our children started school today. First day back to school. It's August. What is today? August 12th, 13th.
Yeah.
So we have a 5th grader and an 8th grade.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Holy moly. Stowe just turned 14 and Dash is going to turn 11 at the end of October. They're starting back to school, which is very good because there's been too many screens and video games in our household lately. And now we don't have any interruptions during podcast recording or work. But yeah, it's exciting, but it's also kind of crazy. I am going to be ramping up heavy vert in the next couple weeks here because I am going to do the Ray 50. Since you're not doing Run Rabbit, it is the same weekend as the Ray 50, which if anyone knows, the Ray 100 and the Ray 50 used to be the same weekend in July. And now they have split them. You won this race a few years ago.
Yep.
And I paced you the last 25 miles. It was really, really fun. The aid station is right outside my childhood home in the park, Falin Park in Ray. And so I've always wanted to go back and see what I could do. It's a 50 miler with 25,000 feet of climbing in it. So you're almost Everesting in 50 miles. So it is straight up, straight down, and you're going to pace me. You're going to return the favor.
I am.
It's going to be very fun. And my goal is to try to break the women's course record.
Yeah, it'll be really
which is
exciting.
15 hours and 20, something like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 15 hours. So yeah, so that, and then we will go into 3 weeks later, the Javelina 100K.
That would be 6 weeks later, I think.
Is it? Oh, good. Oh,
yeah,
thank goodness.
The full month of October.
Thank goodness, because it is completely different. So we'll see how heavy vert translates into super fast runnable 100K. And yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting experiment to see how the body does and what kind of fitness maybe can come out of climbing for a very long time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it'll be good. I'm excited about it just because I think I really am. You know, you got to really be excited about the races you're going to run when they're that long.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'll be fun.
Nice. Well, on to the main topic. I think
right.
Getting back to a question that you had is how closely does your LinkedIn profile need to be like your resume? And I'll kind of give my opinion on it. So I believe that people's LinkedIn profile should be kind of a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't need to have the level of information. In fact, it probably shouldn't have the level of information that's on a resume. But a lot of the highlights should be on there. It needs to be kind of searchable. If a recruiter is going to search someone out like you,
mm-hmm.
you want to make sure you have enough keywords on there. So instead of saying that you're a digital marketing person, making sure if you use Salesforce Marketing Cloud, that's on there because that could be something that a recruiter might search out looking for a specialist in there. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a Java developer, don't just call yourself a software engineer. Make sure Java is on your LinkedIn profile, just like you would your resume. But it doesn't need to have the level of details. One thing, however, that I will say is making sure that the jobs that are on your resume match the jobs that are on your LinkedIn. I have had a number of managers come back and say, hey, on the resume here, there's only a few jobs on here, whereas I look at this LinkedIn profile and I see a lot more jobs. And that discrepancy can be a problem. Mm-hmm. So making sure that it's accurate and they look the same in terms of number of jobs.
Yeah. And maybe in the future, we'll do an entire episode on LinkedIn profile, because I think there's probably things that are nuanced and maybe people don't quite understand. Like, should I use the skills section? Should I, how many bullets should I have? How can I optimize? When should I turn on like open to work? How do I navigate some of the optionality and the functions within your LinkedIn profile? So I think that's probably a separate podcast. They're both
Agreed.
Tools, right? But
yeah,
they kind of do serve different purposes. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think, it should maybe be a slimmed down version of your resume, but still have enough information that it's searchable, because at the end of the day, whether it's an AI tool or a sourcer, recruiter, headhunter, anybody that's looking to hire somebody is likely going to be using LinkedIn.
Yeah, and doing a keyword search
as a starting point. Yeah. If they're doing what's called passive sourcing, so that's a different. So, when a job is posted at a company, depending on the size and depending on the internal structure of that talent acquisition team, there may or may not be what we call passive sourcing on a candidate. I mean, this is what you're specializing in at Stride Staffing. It is essentially headhunting and going to find the exact profile that somebody is looking for versus seeing what comes in via application. and looking through people who just apply to your job. And those are two kind of very different things, but yeah, so I would agree with that. And yeah, and we can talk later about LinkedIn profiles.
Absolutely. Yep. So first topic is kind of a cover letter versus a summary. And I think, starting from the top, I think while a cover letter, especially this day and age, is optional, and I think it's optional, people do them less and less. The summary is really important, and it's not optional. It needs to be on your resume. You need to have a summary section at the top that calls out your specific skill set. It's a great place to start. So let's say you're applying to a job that you're a good fit for. You need to have those skills called out in the summary as well as in the resume. I think it's important to get it in both those places, because that summary is the first thing people see. They will read it. Maybe they don't, decide to interview you or not based on the summary, but it'll certainly keep them reading or not keep them reading based on the information that you have there. I think as you are customizing resumes, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, it's an easy place to customize for each individual job, especially the ones you're most qualified for. It's an easy place to do that, and a kind of a quick place to do that, as opposed to getting into the body of your resume and kind of customizing each section. It's just one spot at the top to customize.
Yeah. I think it's also really becomes more and more important as you get further in your career, because it is a way to like condense the vast amount of experience you have into some major high level bullets. What do you think about, as a summary, a paragraph format versus a bulleted list of sentences? Do you think one's better than the other? I've seen both.
Yeah. I think summary should be sentences, whereas the resume should be bullets. I think it needs to be kind of readable. It's almost like a very high level elevator pitch of who you are and what you do. And I think writing that out in full sentences helps to kind of make it easier on the reader.
And give you like a little bit of a voice too. This is who I am. There can be soft skills and hard skills in that. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that a stat I once saw was that the average resume gets looked at for about 7 seconds.
I would agree with that. Yeah. So, I think it's pretty quick. A yes or no.
Yeah. So before the summary, what would you say is the critical information at the top? I mean, we used to have like addresses up there and like, do you think, I guess a couple questions. One, what should be on the header? So let's start with that.
So I think name, email or phone number, unless you're uncomfortable about putting the phone number on there. I would, but it's okay if it's just an email as a starting place. And then I think location's important. Not necessarily a full address or anything like that, but maybe city and state to kind of help people understand. Because in this environment, yes, there are remote jobs out there, but I think there's only about 20% of the jobs posted are actually remote. So making sure if you're applying for a hybrid job or a fully on-site job, you answer the question very, very quickly. Can you commute to this place?
Yeah. And I mean, maybe willing to relocate. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
if you're not in that same spot, if you're not in the place where the job is, I mean, maybe calling that out. So you're like automatically addressing that potential objective. I think you can put that on LinkedIn too, that you're willing to relocate, but that's always, I guess in my experience, I'm always going to look at somebody that is in the location versus somebody that's willing to relocate. Because there's been a lot of times where that's been said, and when it comes down to it, it might not be the case. So
yeah, I mean, I had a person who wanted to move to Colorado for their entire life, came out, got flown out for an interview, got offered the job, accepted the job, took the relocation package, whole 9 yards. And when the actual time to move came, they got cold feet and backed out. And it was a mess of trying to return the money from the relocation package, getting rid of the offer, telling my client that this candidate's actually not going to relocate here. So, even if someone's willing to relocate, it's hard. They almost, as a recruiter, I really need you to have either lived here previously and really excited to get back, for a great reason, like getting closer to family, or you need to be here already.
Yeah. What about photographs?
No, I would say no to photographs. I think that the problem is, one, AI doesn't know what to do with them, and it could confuse it, and that's a problem when you send your resume into an ATS. Two, for Americans specifically, I think it always is a little odd because a lot of people don't do it. So it's only occasionally you see a photograph on here on the resume. I think it's more common internationally to add a photograph because I've seen a lot of international people with their photo on their resume.
Yeah.
So if you're an American in the American market, I would not do it. If you're international, follow the kind of culture that you're seeing. But if you're seeing a lot of resumes that don't have a photograph, I wouldn't have one either.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and it's a question around LinkedIn profiles too, because you do most often have a photo on your LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
But I think on resumes, it is a way, like you want the skills to stand out for themselves versus somebody innately or unconsciously being biased by a photo.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Last thing on cover letter.
Yes.
I think cover letter is good if we're talking about a niche job that you are uniquely qualified for and being able to kind of tell your story. I think also senior roles, cover letters are still used pretty commonly. And I think for small companies where you really want to talk about, your engagement with their particular company, I think could be important things too. By and large, I just don't see cover letters all that often. And when I get one, I think my initial thought is, oh, that's a really old school approach. And that's fine. Taking an old school approach isn't a bad idea. But in a lot of cases, unless you're really writing a customized cover letter for a specific company, I would not use a generic cover letter. I just wouldn't use one.
Yeah. So sometimes they're required every now and then by a system or by an application process. There is a requirement in there. So kind of can't get around that. But maybe we think about the modern cover letter as, a LinkedIn InMail or a message to that hiring manager.
Yep, we talked about this before.
We talked about it in one of our previous episodes. Like, I almost see this replacing that because the point of cover letters is really like you say why you are interested in that company, for a deeper reason or whatever, and how it aligns to you and your values and your experience. And so I think that could be done through a message to a hiring manager. And then you're kind of going above and beyond and saying, like, I'm actually targeting this company for these reasons. I've done some research on it. I'm interested in, this is why I think I'm a good fit. And, kind of maybe that serves the same purpose.
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
And then, it's being read maybe by the hiring manager versus just a recruiter who may or may not pass it along. And I say just a recruiter.
Just a recruiter.
Sometimes, there are so many different types of recruiters out there, but they may or may not even pass that along to the hiring manager. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next topic is when to customize your resume. And we've covered this a little bit in the past, so we won't really kind of go deep in this. But I think when you are really well qualified for a job, or it's a job you're really like dying to get because it's with a company you're interested in. Maybe it's a company that's in your town that you really would like to work for. It's a short commute, something like that. That's when I would customize your resume. And, we'll get into some of the AI tools that you can use. That is one way that you can do it, is take the job description and your resume and ask for it to call out areas where you could customize your resume for this particular job. I like to do it by hand. If you let AI mess with your resume too much, it turns into a very robotic thing or uses language that you wouldn't normally use. It just makes it sound not as good, but it can tell you where you should be customizing it so you can do it by hand, keeping your voice the same.
Okay. So that when you say customize, you're tailoring it and adjusting it specifically to align with that job. You're not fabricating anything.
Right.
You're more pulling out the experience that they're asking for specifically and highlighting that and using that as some of the main talking points.
I think here's an example of a way you could use it. So let's say for the last 2 years, you've been in an environment, you're a software developer, and you're using the software development language Java. But years passed, and your entire career before that, you used .NET. And let's say you're applying to a .NET job. what you could do is minimize some of the Java experience you've had over the last 2 years and then maximize the .NET experience that you've had previous to that, or vice versa. Let's say you had .NET in your whole career. Now you've switched to Java. You're applying for another Java job. Maybe you really expand out the Java experience you've had over the past 2 years, making it show that you are a fit for the Java job that you're getting, even though you've got more .NET experience. And you could do that for any skill set that you have. But I think that's a place where you could tailor your resume in a way that makes it more interesting.
So kind of question for you around that. What would you do? Because it typically, like, and we may cover this later, but you want to show chronological, like you want your resume to be chronological, starting with the most recent at the top. And you also don't want to have any gaps in that chronology. You want to explain what you've been doing throughout the years past.
Right.
If, there is a job like a Java.NET and there's this gap, would you ever consider putting, this is my like Java experience, even if it's this job, and they're not chronologically subsequent?
I think I would call it out in the summary.
Okay.
Hey, here are the companies that I used Java in, and you can explain it there. I don't think I would mess around with the chronology of the resume. It'll just make it confusing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that I would do it that way.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome. So another interesting thing on resumes, especially now, we're calling this section Beat the Bot, or using high frequency words. So one of the things that you'll want to do as you apply for jobs, especially for large companies that are using an ATS, that's probably using...
What's an ATS?
ATS is an applicant tracking system. And you're not always going to know that you're in one, but if it's a long computerized form that you spend a lot of time saying, and you have to put that you're not a robot, there's a good chance you're applying to an ATS.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, some ATSs are Workday, Bamboo, Greenhouse, LinkedIn Easy Apply it could be, linked to an ATS. There's proprietary systems, some PeopleSoft, RecruitMax. Those are some of the names that like you might see that little brand like as you're going through the application process. Then you know that you're applying through a applicant tracking system, which is then going to feed into a database that all of the recruiters in that company are looking at for applications. And it's essentially kind of how they're project managing their jobs.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of those ATSs use an AI scan to make sure they're not letting just rando resumes through. And one of the things that's really challenging right now is companies are having a tough time tuning those scans correctly. They're either tuning it too loose, so all candidates get through with no real scan, or they're tuning it too tightly, no candidates get through. So getting that right is really hard, and companies are struggling with it. And that's why I think a lot of people who are applying online right now are not hearing back, because no one's actually seeing their resume because it's getting scanned out. So one of the ways to kind of defeat that is making sure that you're using kind of the most important words from the job description in your resume and using them often. So we'll call them high frequency words. So for example, like let's say, I used this before, but let's say you're a digital marketing person, you're using Salesforce Marketing Cloud, making sure you're putting Salesforce Marketing Cloud in a number of spots, in the summary, in the skills or software, however you kind of call it out, in actually the bulleted list on that job that you used it. And don't hesitate to talk about the different modules that you've used with it. Or if, in some cases, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is a mouthful, is SFMC. So using the acronym, just making sure that you use it in as many ways as you possibly can to make sure if it does get scanned by an AI, it will connect all those different spots and say, yep, this person's good because they have it, 20 times on the resume. So I think that's an important aspect to really be paying attention to as you're applying to these jobs.
Sounds good.
Yeah. One other thing, there are tools out there that you can go, and there's something called Job Scan. You can kind of just Google that, and you can put your resume in.
We can put it in the link in the show notes. Job Scan.
Yes. So you can go to Job Scan and make sure that your resume is optimized for AI, and it can tell you whether it is or not, and then you can make some modifications to it.
Is that a free tool? Just an online?
Cool. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Job Scan.
So this goes nicely into kind of the high frequency words, but tell them early and tell them often about your skills. So having your skills in the summary, So let's say you're a salesperson and you commonly hit quota for the last 3 years, putting that in the summary. And then also in each individual job that you've got in there, talk about hitting quota. Because I think that's partly what people are looking for is they want to have someone, if they're in a sales role, hey, I want this person to have achieved quota on a very regular basis. So putting that in the first summary part and then each subsequent job afterwards, you're constantly reminding them, yes, I hit quota regularly, like 7 out of 8 quarters, or however you're going to put it out there, I think is a really important aspect of things. So telling them early, tell them often about the skills that you've got.
Yeah, one thing on the sales piece, because I've done a lot of sales recruiting in my career. If you've made President's Club or whatever it's called, the awards club for overachievement, that's something that's really often scanned and highlighted or pulled out. So put those kinds of accolades in there because they are a way to show that you hit the metrics if you have them. Don't say you made President's Club if you didn't, because it will be checked and verified, and sometimes by back channels as well. And so that's the last thing you want to do. But yeah, I think just like it also might be important to explain that quota just a little bit if it is something unique in the way that it's measured, or if it's a very difficult one. I don't know. Just, thinking about what were my best accomplishments here, whether they're soft skills or hard skills, and pulling those out, I think would be good. I don't know if we're going to go into this in the rest of it, but one question that just came to mind is about the length of resumes. I mean, I think are we going to talk about that? Or do you want to talk about it now?
So let me say one more point on this, and then we can have that as the next topic.
Okay.
Because that's an important one that I forgot to talk about. But one other thing that you want to do is quantify your achievements. We talked about President's Club. That's great. Hitting quota, that's great. If you're in a role where you're doing like in a finance role and you're doing a lot of budgeting and forecasting, talk about the numbers that you're doing. So large companies want to see other large company experience. So if you're dealing with $100 million budget, make sure you put that in there because a large company is going to want to see that. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're coming from a smaller company, you might be dealing with a $5 million budget. Well, if you're applying to other smaller companies, they want to see kind of the amount of work that you've done, the complexity of a large or small budget. So making sure you quantify that with numbers on the resume.
And also licenses, certifications, things that kind of show that you've done additional education around that specific area of expertise. Yeah. I think could probably be either in bullets or in a separate section that's like, additional education or
you could just have certifications. And like if you have, I just talked to someone who told me they have 10 certifications for Salesforce.
Yeah.
I would have a separated kind of like not box, but just
Salesforce certifications.
Yeah, right. Just list them all out just so people can see that you take it seriously.
Yeah. I mean, you have to kind of think about it like, okay, on the other side of this, what's going on is either a recruiter, internal, external, or even just in a small company, maybe just a hiring manager is thinking about what's my ideal skill set for this role. And they're listing it out. That's what ends up in the job description. They're saying like, these are the things this person needs to have to be successful in this job. And those are the things that then you need to match. And so like, sometimes those things are a non-negotiable. Like I think about a compliance role that I filled that, had ISO 27001 certification requirement. It's like, we're not looking at a resume where that doesn't exist because this person has to have that. We're not going to train that. And therefore like it's a critical piece. And so, maybe looking at that job description you're applying for and saying, okay, and sometimes it's called out required skills, required requirements and nice to haves, but you need to make sure all the requirements that you have are very much highlighted and called out in your resume.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For it to be the best.
Yep.
Okay.
Length of resume. So to me, if you've got 5 or less years of experience, you should have a 1-page resume. If you have probably 10 or under, you can probably start to get away with a 2-page resume. If you are 20, 30 year, 2 pages is kind of the magic number. Can you get in the 3? Sure. I had someone send me a 14-page resume.
That's more like a deck. It's more like a business plan of my career.
Yeah, seriously. Well, and what I told them was, I can't send this. Yeah. No one's going to read this, and they refused to shorten it. So you know what ended up happening? I didn't send them.
Yeah.
Because that type of person, one, if you are so rigid that you can't, take stuff out or shorten it at a request, then how are you going to be to work with at that job? And that's something that I think about a lot, is in the process, I'm kind of evaluating, does this person fit? And anybody who's super rigid on that may not be a great fit for a lot of companies. So really thinking through, like, if someone requests you to shorten that resume, have a shortened version that you can call out. No one's going to read anything more than a 3-page resume. I mean, I don't know what could possibly be on there. I suppose if we're talking about maybe scientific, and you're having to list out the papers that you've done, or if you're a doctor and you've had to put the different things that you've had to work on over the years, there could be circles that use a long resume, but for business, 2 to 3 pages is really the max.
Yeah, I think that the interview becomes the extension of the resume, right? So that is where all the embellishment and the discussion of going deep.
Hopefully not too much embellishment.
Not embellishment. All of the details and the extended, all of the, however you want to call it. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? That is where you can talk at length about all of the things on your resume, and that's the point of it, is to do that in the interview.
Absolutely. So last topic is tools to use.
Tools to use for writing your resume?
Tools to use for writing your resume. So one thing that I urge you not to do is put in just some basics and have AI like ChatGPT write your resume. You really, really need to have your own voice come out in the resume. So you can take your resume and put in ChatGPT and say, please help modernize this, but please don't change the language or the voice that I'm using. So make sure you give it very explicit instructions, or it will totally change kind of the way it looks. But I had to do it because I was putting together an RFP, and I hadn't redone a resume in a long time. So I used my existing resume, which was like from college and looked like it was college formatting. So I asked AI, ChatGPT, to help update my resume. But I gave it the instructions to leave the language the same, the voice the same, everything else. Shortened some things. It took some bullets out, highlighted some things, changed some fonts and colors. And that was pretty much all it did. But it looks great. And I'm really glad that I did it. So I would definitely encourage you, if you have, if you're 20 years into your career, haven't updated it in a while, it's a good place to do it. There's other tools that we talked about, JobScan, Grammarly, although a lot of AI will check your grammar for you anyway. And then Canva resume templates, which I didn't even know Canva had that.
There's a lot of templates in Canva.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
A lot of templates.
So you can use different tools to be able to get your resume kind of in a good place without changing it too much. But I really want to reiterate the point. Make sure your voice comes out in there. It's really important that your voice comes out in your resume. Because if you don't, it's going to sound very either not like you or very kind of machine-ish. And a lot of people these days are used to reading stuff that's generated by AI, and they're used to going, wow, that's a lot of AI use here. This person couldn't even put together their own resume. So it may end up being a downside. And I think there's a lot of people, myself included, when I come across like a news article that I can tell was written by AI, I'm out. I don't want to read it. Because I can go scan that stuff myself. I don't need to, read it somewhere else. So I definitely encourage you to use it as a tool, but don't use it as the main thing that's writing it.
Yes, similar to how we talked about in an interview of being yourself. Like, this is an opportunity to show your uniqueness and your own personality a bit through it. I think make sure that it's very easy to read, easy to navigate, easy to spot certain things that you want to maybe highlight, but don't use a crazy font. Don't use a very small font size. I think if you're in like a marketing or a creative type role, it's probably okay to have a little bit of stylization in their to make it a bit of a stylized resume in a way, like maybe color, maybe some different lines or just it's a little more visually like artistic, but just don't go over the top with it, I would say.
Yeah, and I think some of that also, when we're talking about ATS scans, they hate stuff like boxes, weird formatting, multiple columns.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff can get stuck in those ATS tools because they don't recognize them well, and that can be really problematic. So just be cautious on how much really weird formatting you use within your resume, even if it is, even if you are creative and kind of putting something together that showcases it. You can have a secondary document that can show and highlight kind of your creativity. If you're a UX designer, if you are an artist, or any of those type of things, you can have a secondary document that kind of you can use as your portfolio, or you can send them to a website
You
that
can have
is
a
your
link.
portfolio.
Yeah. In your resume, maybe you do have links out.
Yeah.
If you're to a portfolio for, a marketing person or something like that, that would be a way to kind of give them everything that they might want and need about you in that one page. But
yeah, for
you're
sure,
using that space for going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Cool.
So some of the key takeaways: make sure you use AI, but use it very wisely. Make sure that you call out in the summary kind of your skill set. Make sure your skills are written nicely within the document itself so people can see it. And if someone's doing a keyword search, your resume pops up. Making sure that you're using the high frequency words appropriately and customize it for the jobs that you're most interested in. So we'll create a resume checklist and we'll put it on our Patreon so you can get in there and just kind of see we're almost creating, like, after each podcast episode, this little checklist that you can do that very, very quickly go through, make sure your resume kind of covers that. We did that with interview prep and the other ones as well. So check us out on Patreon, Too Talented. And
TOO.
Number two.
Sorry. Okay. The number 2 talented on Patreon.
That's correct.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Glad I asked. But that's cool. All those checklists are there. It's like a little, it's your little workbook guide for.
Yeah. It's a little database of job searching stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll be answering some questions on there. We haven't got a lot of questions yet. But I think we probably will in time. If you do come up with a question, you can email me, Graham@strides.com. There's 2 S's, one in Strides.
GRAHAM.
GRAHAM. And you can kind of find us there. And we'll be back next week with a new topic, possibly LinkedIn. We'll see.
Yeah, let us know what you thought of this one. If you have any questions, other specific questions about resumes or anything we didn't cover, let us know, and we'll be happy to answer. But hopefully this was beneficial and kind of gets you feeling prepped to update or redo your resume.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.